Two Kenyans closely related to the JM Kariuki case are now dead, yet to be buried. They were on the opposite sides concerning the death of JM Kariuki. They were from different genders. They both fought hard to win their way. One wanted to lead Kenyans in a wild chase, as he, together with others, wished that the hyenas had a buffet meal, while the other one wanted leads that would let Kenyan find the truth and the body of JM Kariuki. One said that JM had left the country and was in Zambia. The other produced JM's travel documents to prove that JM had not left the country. And she was very categorical by saying that JM can, can never imagine leaving Kenya without his passport and traveling documents. Supposing, just supposing, this lady's resilience was slightly lower than what she had, the history of Kenya, especially that aspect about JM's assassination, would not have come out. The country would not have known that JM had been killed and left for hyenas. Supposing the hyenas in Ngong had eaten JM's body. According to the Maasais around, many bodies had been dropped there in a similar fashion. And the Maasais never bothered to notify the police. Remember, they said it is quite normal for people to be brought here and shot here and left for the hyenas. But funny, oh funny, those many people who used to be left there for hyenas to eat, it never occurred to the Maasais that they go to report to the police. It is only JM whom they went to report to the police. Why? That one, I'm sure we will never know. But we can always say that damu ya JM ilikuwa very strong, that it prevented hyenas from eating him. It convinced the Maasai to go and report to the police. Even when they went to report the police were unwilling to follow up the case, but they insisted. Although police later came up with a theory that is not convincing by saying that, those days we used to have even an inspector as the OCS and another inspector as a deputy OCS. Songong had some things which were happening. There was an inspector who was going there to be the OCS. And so the deputy OCS, who was an inspector, was the one who was in the office. And the inspector, who was the OCS, was moving away on transfer with using the Land Rover. And there was no Land Rover. But police training has it that especially cases of somebody like dead person or something or major like that, you leave everything and go there. So their story of, you see, the inspector who was the OCS had taken the Land Rover away to go and take him to a river and then bring in the new inspector who would be the OCS. and the deputy OCS was an inspector, could not. But then, that is what they said, which does not make sense. But then we ask ourselves, supposing the hyenas had eaten the JM's body. According to the Maasais, many bodies had been dropped there, and the Maasais never bothered to report to the police. But with the JM, they did. That is where we say damu ya JM ilivuta sana. They did not know him. They did not know him. Those days, they were not aware of current affairs to even know that a VIP had disappeared. Many years later, a bishop was supposed to disappear. Bishop Muge was supposed to disappear in West Pokot. You see, those far-flung areas, Igong is not far-flung, but the lifestyle of the Maasais then was that a lot of activities would happen in Nairobi, but people in Gong would not be aware. Of course, everywhere in Kenya, people are asking. The question was simple. Where is JM? Everybody everywhere was aware of that. But people in Ngong, Maasais in Ngong, would not even connect that. So, people saying that people have not said, but in case anybody comes up with an idea that maybe they did that because they had had a VIP, no. It is just that they mysteriously, without even they themselves being aware, decided to go and report to the police station. And even at the police station, when the police showed no interest in pursuing the body, the old man insisted on staying there long enough until he was accompanied to the scene of accident. George Githii was a Njonjo man through and through until the time he breathed his last. If you meet the people who know him, I believe they would tell you that he lived his life saying, Kenya would have been better if Njonjo would have been the president. Or Kenya would have been better if Njonjo would have been listened to. He was a Njonjo person through and through, even after Njonjo died. And I can only say that he ceased being a Njonjo person when George Githii died recently, last week. I have heard people say, and very senior journalists at that there were occasions when George Githii overpraised the government, and there were times he talked against the government. I want to say this. What people did not notice or didn't notice is whichever side he was in, praising the government or attacking the government. Coincidentally, that was the opinion of Charles Mogane Njonjo at that time. So if you formed an opinion, today George Githii has attacked the government. Oh, today George Githii has praised the government. That would be the reflection of Charles Mogane Njonjo's at that particular time. So we could say that he was Charles Mogane Njonjo's journalist avenue, where he would use the press to express things that were pro-Njonjo. Him and Njonjo, the way he was to Njonjo, for those of you, for the Gen Z, I would say it is like him, like Gwambo and Junet. Just like Gwambo and Junet. I don't think, okay, Agwambo is gone. I don't know how Junet will have his political views and whatever. Because Junet to Agwambo was like George Githii to Charles Mugane Njonjo. I will upload a few thematic tapes on Mama Terry, but allowed me to make a fair comment. In the records with the intelligence, it is stated that JM Kariuki spent his last days at Mwenge House along Ole Odume Road. According to records with the intelligence, JM Kariuki spent his last few days at Mwenge House along Ole Odume Road. In the first of the 5 times that I met her, Mrs. Terry told me that it was at Kindaruma Road. So, as I was trained, that her word is not to be questioned. You see, I may read 1,000 reports which may say that he spent his last day at Ole Odume Road. But Mama Terry told me to her face at her house, not far from Yaya Center. She said that it was at Kindaruma. Actually, as I'll talk about it later, she never interfered. She never interfered whenever I talked. And she was a pure Mau Mau lady. Sworn never to disclose anything. So you talk, whatever she asked. The only thing that she differed, when I said, she reached a place and told me, no. JM did not stay his last days along Ole Odume Road. It was at Kindaruma. So as per NIS training and whatever, we say that since she was there and she was at whatever, it shows that the records with us was wrong. The other issue that I want to clear is the dangerous Luo gangster. The dangerous Luo gangster. You know, all the things that have been happening, all the things that happened when JM died, it shows that it was a panic assassination. If it was a pre-planned, they would have planned like Jacob Juma, make sure that the places he visits, the CCTVs are not working. Wait for him to walk, to be away from the CBD. I'd be in a place where there are no CCTV, and so those are the things they do. If they have planned to assassinate you. But when it is something that comes out of the blues, like the Bishop Muge, then there is a lot of things that do not go according to the textbook, but they go according to the environment when somebody is being killed. There is an argument. Now we want to talk about the gangster, the dangerous blue gangster. There is an argument, a heated argument, which leads Wanyoike Dhungu to slap JM and the teeth come out. The frontal teeth. Now, listen to me. JM Kariuki has a pistol, which only Ben Githii knows. Ben Githii knew that it was just a harassing incident that would end up by JM just being told to go slow, But there was no way anybody would have predicted that two temperamental people would argue. So Wanyoike Dhungu slapped JM and the front teeth came out. As a reflex, JM went for the hidden pistol. I want also to clarify here why they left Kindaruma. In the KTN, I said they left Ole Odume, but Mama Terry told me that it was at Kindaruma. Actually, she was Mau Mau lady. She made sure that No information came from me. You come out with with the information, get it and whatever. But she felt so strong that she could not allow me to continue with the narrative that he was at Oleodume. And the statement was short and clear. I'll come to that one time. That JM Kariuki was at Kindaruma. And you know Kindaruma from Oleodume is far. That is the only thing she corrected. Now from Kindaruma, they were to go because JM how do you call Ben Githii left JM's residence at Kindaruma with JM. They were to go to Kingsway House, but JM insisted that he can only go there with a pistol. So they went to Hilton. People talk of Hilton people clearing. I don't want to counter those people because there was no CCTV there. But according to what I know is that they were to leave Kindaruma straight to Kingsway House. But JM insisted that, and you know, men are funny. Ben Githii wanted JM to leave his house because if you stay with your wife and say, my friend has, women have, is it eighth or ninth sense? You can tell your wife that I want to move out. I want to see, modeling au pair is calling me. I want to go with modeling au pair somewhere. No, no, no. Something tells me that that trip, nini, apana. I just have a feeling. So the purpose was a pistol was to be gotten from GSU headquarters and it was to be brought to Kindaruma, JM's residence. But because it was to be brought to Kindaruma, JM's residence, and since being at the residence would make Mama Terry convince him not to go, so they decided that they move, and it is like a Y formation, isn't it? The gun moves from A and you move from B, you go and meet with the gun somewhere, and then both of you and the gun head to what do you call Kingsway House. That was the plan. So the ending up in Hilton was to wait for a runner to bring a pistol or a revolver from GSU headquarters. Then from there is when they walked. But JM had a sixth sense, and that is why JM told those who are around, mark whatever is happening. So that is what had happened. And I was talking about them going there. The plan was that they go there according to Ben Githii. He was just to escort him there. The fellow is threatened and told to go slow. He agrees to go slow. Then that is the end of the story. But there was a heated debate. The Swahilis say wajinga wawili wanaweza kaa pamoja, lakini werevu wawili hawawezi kaa pamoja. So in the heated argument, JM Kariuki was slapped, the teeth came out, the frontal teeth, and then he tried to shoot Wanyuike, but was shot by Githii twice. The first one to disable him. Second, in the state he was in, JM would later on disclose the circumstances and it would be a problem to the government. So that is why the second shot was taken to finish him. And the decision to rush him to Ngong was an afterthought. As I said, like in the case of Jacob Juma, you want to kill somebody, arrange it to lead him to the scene and lead him to the scene of the shooting or the assassination. And after that, you know how to dispose of the body. But then there was, what do you call, pandemic fear and whatever, and that is why he was rushed there. So he he somehow was not eaten by hyena. So he somehow was reported in Gong police station. When he was reported in Gong police station, he was later taken to city mortuary. Let me tell you about those days. City mortuary was different from what it is today. In that, do you know that entering city mortuary today is like entering a military barrack? I have a classmate who was a Luo who had come to Mbagathi Road Primary School, and somebody had shown him the city mortuary, saying that they used to stay there. So this fellow, one time, just without even knocked and entered an operation room and found somebody being dealt with, a dead body being dealt with, and that Luo fellow, by the time we completed school, he still had nightmares. So those days, city mortuary, we did not have these cases of today of a second wife coming to claim the body, or cases to do with with dead bodies and whatever, and a perimeter wall was later built, and so on and so on. These are things that were not there those days. The only protection that was made was that they had this type of glasses whereby from outside you could not see inside, because they would not want anybody walking along Bagathi Way to see what was happening in. So that was the only thing they did. So the body ended up in city mortuary. That is what I wanted to say. You can see that from my classmate, Bagathi Road Primary School, he could enter the mortuary thinking that he was visiting a classmate of his, only to find a dead body being operated on, post-mortem in the process. But that day, the mortuary was properly, guarded. You, in fact, the two mamas, the two widows, I think the three widows. Anyway, I'm subject to be corrected. But the widows, when they entered into the mortuary, they had even to pretend they were not Mrs. JM. So entering the mortuary, as I've given you an example, was easier that day, but on that particular day, it was harder to enter the city mortuary than even entering it today. It was really hard to enter the mortuary that time as it is today, more than even today. And people were placed there. They were placed so many that they even lacked enough personnel, that they had to take the Luo fellow who was guarding, who was assigned duties at the parliament. He was assigned to go to. I think. Let me say something before I continue. You know, I've always been talking about what I know, but we later on, now you can compare your notes with other people's notes and whatever. I have come to learn later that there was the Luo fellow who used to. If you look at Mark Muithaga, the late Mark Muithaga, was saying that the late Margaret Ogot, Mrs. Margaret Ogot, looked at the fellow who was. He said, "You used to work in parliament with special branch. How is it that you are now in the city mortuary?" You can see that with KTN. It is there. My assessment, because this is something that I came to know a few years ago, and I have to give an opinion based on that. I have to say that it means that this fellow was placed there strategically to identify if politicians were coming, members of parliament were coming to parliament, and then report and say, so and so came. But then, Madam, oh, not Margaret, but Grace Okogot, yeah, Grace Ogot talked to him in Dolu and said, "Since when did you become a mortuary attendant?" So, as I said, that when he was at the mortuary, um, the intention must have been they were thinking of what to do. But rumors must have spread. Rumors must have spread and reached the special branch. These are some of the things I'm saying. I didn't know then, but after comparing my evidence and other people's evidence, I come to that conclusion that the information must have spread, and the government was now in a hurry to dispose of the body. They wanted, they didn't even, the laws of disposing body and unidentified bodies is that it stays in the mortuary for quite a long time without being claimed. When it has stayed in the mortuary for a long time without being claimed, then it is buried in a mass as an unclaimed body. So he was to be eaten by hyenas. They didn't eat him. He was to stay in the mortuary forever until he was to stay in the mortuary forever until he is disposed of as an unclaimed body. That one didn't happen. Most likely, rumors have now started spreading that JM is in the mortuary. That is why a lot of security, a lot of police officers surrounded the mortuary, and they were watching whoever was entering. That is why even the JM's family entered there and whatever. So the idea of a Luo gangster, a dangerous Luo gangster, came up about as an idea which just came suddenly. You add two and two together. They want to dispose of the body. People have not. They are working out in quick time, and then they notice the 4 teeth which had been removed because of the slab for Wanyuke Thungu. Then they decided to say that he was a dangerous Luo. What do we call a dangerous Luo gangster? That one makes sense. So that is how they brought in people, and those people who know about professional mourners, I think those days they must have been uh, hired professional mourners. Those days people are not as open as today. People used to be very careful with what they say. Some of the dots that are filled because of comparing notes today. Some of the dots we are filling in, and that is why I felt bad when the TJRC was not disclosed, because the evidence we gave to the TJRC was me giving my type of report without knowing what the other person has given. But then people have listened to my story and I've listened to their stories. Now you find that we compare the things, and then because of time, you cannot recall everything that happened that time exactly as if it happened today. Those days, people are not as open as today. This is where I believe that the mortuary personnel must have spread information that the person is in city mortuary most likely was JM. Because the body was hidden. Yes, the body was hidden until you remember the journalist friend of theirs who went and talked in Kikuyu. You know, they were pretending to look for the body of somebody. They cooked up a story of somebody. In this case, it is easier and advisable to pretend you are looking for somebody of the other gender. Because if they're hiding, let's say JM Kariuki, if they're hiding JM Kariuki, who was a man, then you'd go there and report at the reporting place that I lost an aunt or a niece and I want to see the body of ladies here so that. But then this close journalist friend of you can see on KTN, he's saying that when he remained alone with one of the mortuary attendants, he said, "Turenda kuona modoshi oge marauga I hate I'm a Kikuyu, but I'm having a. We want to see the body of that man. They are saying that he's hidden somewhere. So you can see It reached a time when they were now in alarm, where they're trying to dispose of the body because the information had spread out. It is also could be the reason why suddenly the security was enhanced around the city mortuary. And we must thank Mama Terry that she was very bold. Imagine, she, I don't know, was it a belt or something? She looked at a certain thing that can't recall what it is, but there's something that JM used to like putting on, and he had bought it when he had gone to, is it Switzerland or something? He had gone to a country and bought her. So when she entered that, she just saw that. Uh, I can't recall whatever, but then she knew it was he. She was very brave. We must. I've told her several times. She was very bold and came out as though nothing had happened. She even went to parliament. They went to parliament, and until they entered into the parliament, when they said that they have killed JM and he's at the mortuary. Supposing she had done so in the mortuary, suppose she would have shown the emotions at the mortuary and something like that. You see, she would have been chased away, and by the time she called the parliamentarian or anything, the body would have also been scattered away and something like that. Go well, my mother. I miss your cold food. I miss your cold food and cold drinks. When she could, the 4 times I was there, she would. I never entered her house. Yeah, I never entered her house near Yaya Center, but we could stay in those chairs which are umbrella seats, outside her house, next to the Coptic church. Then we would sit there, we would talk. She would have her domestic employees bring tea, food, and anything. But I would be so much concentrating on mwanangu kula chakula itapoa, but I'm concentrating on what we talk. After we have exhausted what we were talking about, is when I would now start eating the cold food. And that is the time when I would start taking the cold tea. Mama, I'll miss your cold tea. Mama, I'll miss your cold food. God bless you.